Welcome back, everyone. Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. In my last two videos, I covered Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, their interviews with Tucker Carlson at the Blaze Summit. And in this video, I want to cover Mike Pence and Vivek Ramaswamy. Now, Mike Pence, I don't actually want to go through his responses and answers to all of Tucker's questions because everybody's been talking about it. You've heard what he said. He did essentially end his career, so I don't think it's worth going through everything he said. But I do want to just play the last part of his interview with Tucker where he shakes Tucker's hand because Pence is supposed to be this religious conservative, a man of God. And I've never seen somebody give someone such a look of hatred, just absolute disgust of somebody. It kind of just made me laugh. So here's Pence shaking hands with Tucker Carlson, and just look at his body language. He's just dripping hatred.
Amen. Vice President Mike Pence, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look at that look on his face. He wants to strangle Tucker. And again, this is supposed to be a religious conservative, a man of God. And perhaps, maybe he's a good man in his personal life. But my Lord, he couldn't hide it here. He couldn't hide just how much he can't stand Tucker Carlson, even with the cameras on, even when he's trying to defend himself and his political ideas and reach people. This comes out, and again, his campaign is absolutely done. So let's go to Vivek and talk about Vivek. Of course, I always talk about foreign policy. That's what I'm concerned about. That's where I will focus here. He's an interesting guy, very intelligent. I do like him. Is he a legit candidate? He's kind of young, so probably not. But it's nice to have somebody in this race who's fresh and young, has some good ideas. So I do like Vivek. I do want to play his part about on foreign policy Ukraine, because one of my criticisms of DeSantis was he was just talking in circles and not actually saying what he would do with Ukraine. Well, Vivek actually answers the question and gives some specifics. So cheers to Vivek for actually saying what he would do. We can discuss whether or not it will work. It may or may not, but at least he's saying something that is realistic on Ukraine finally. So let's start let's play this answer he gives to Tucker talking about foreign policy, talking about Ukraine.
Well, since you are a younger person and spend time with them, we saw yesterday that a group of reservists has been called up to Europe, apparently, to prepare for war with Russia. Of people in the age cohort who might plausibly be called up to do that, what's the response?
I think there is no basis for us to send our young men and women, our sons and daughters, people my age or any age, to go defend somebody else's border halfway around the world when we should be using our own military to secure our own border in this country. And I will not apologize for that. We have to put the interests of this country first. And one of the things that does frustrate me, Tucker, is that this is one issue where I so love many of the other people who are running for this nomination for president. I think most of us, and the entire field I speak for, are in this for the right reasons. We are people who care about our country and want to deliver our country to a better place. But on this issue, nearly our entire field is indistinguishable in practice from where Biden is on this, which is in an undefined, ill-defined way pouring more money into a war that I think is destined to become Vietnam or Iraq all over again. And if you don't learn from the lessons of the past, you're going to be making the same mistakes on an even larger scale going forward.
Let me just stop right there. I will say, as far as troops moving to Europe, these, I think, 3,000 or 1,300 reservists, no one is advocating that we're going to directly get involved in this conflict, which is why at the NATO summit, we basically just told Ukraine, yeah, sorry, buddy. Sorry, guys, you're not joining NATO. Good luck with you. Good luck with that. And we'll give you some weapons to keep on fighting the Russians. But until that war is over and done with, we're not coming in and inviting you into NATO because that means Article 5. We're at war with Russia, World War III. We're not doing that. So I hear a lot of people making a big deal of these reservists going to Europe. I think it's a little bit overblown. But as far as Republicans and Biden and Democrats all having the same position, he's right. It's ridiculous. But I will say this: what's funny about it is that Republicans who support this war, because they want to contrast themselves to Biden and attack Biden, they attack him from the right. He's not sending enough weapons. He's not sending enough planes and missiles. There should be more things given to Ukraine. So it's actually quite pathetic to watch some of these Republicans attack Biden from the right for not doing enough. A notable example would be Adam Kinzinger, big doofus. Thank God he's no longer in Congress. But in the beginning of this conflict, he was like, no-fly zone over Ukraine. Give him this, give him that. If Adam Kinzinger was president, we'd be fighting World War III right now. Thankfully, the moron is gone. I think he's working for CNN now. So I can't stand that guy. Obviously, you can't tell. But yeah, watching Republicans attack from the right is kind of ridiculous.
We have to end this war. We can end this war and start prioritizing the interests of actual U.S. citizens here at home.
So I think, judging by the response you just got, I think a chunk of, I don't know what percentage, but a lot of Republican primary voters agree with you. Not all, but a lot. I don't think any Republican donors agree with you.
I think that's accurate. And I've lost, to be really honest with you, I've lost many large donors or prospective donors over this issue. And it puzzles me, because I think the tempting thing to say is to have some conspiratorial explanation that they have money at stake in government contractors, Raytheon, or whatever. I don't think that's true, actually. I think there's something else going on in the psychology of an establishment in both the Republican Party and the Democrat Party that is reluctant to the idea that we somehow can't be the ones fighting the war that's the popular war of the day, the politically correct war. I think there's no such thing as a politically correct war. And so what I ask is, how are we actually going to end this conflict in a way that advances U.S. interests?
Let me just say, he's wondering why the donors and everybody support these wars, and he's saying, well, it's not just about money, and is it some sort of group think? Well, it's a little more complicated. There is different, how you describe it. You have the military side, the defense contractors, you have the think tanks, you have the banks, and at the top level, they all sort of work together, and they have this vision of this liberal world order that they want to keep advancing, and Russia and China stand in the way of that. So their vision is this global vision of again, this liberal order that they're running, and they want to vanquish their opponents, and Russia is one of those opponents. That's really why they all at the very top agree. And China, again, is another one of these opponents, which is why we are getting nastier about China. So it's really about the elite at the top trying to maintain global power. That's why they all agree. And to get to the top, you have to be pretty amoral and pretty cutthroat, and they all are once you get to that level.
And the thing that puzzles me, Tucker, is nobody in either party is talking about this right now. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat that the U.S. actually faces today. And we are pushing Russia closer into China's arms by actually continuing to arm Ukraine. So what I've said is that I would negotiate a deal that ends the Ukraine war, frees the current lines of control. Yes, that means giving part of the Donbas region to Russia. I would make a hard commitment that NATO never admits Ukraine to NATO. And those seem like unspeakable words in certainly the Republican donor class. But we get something greater in return, which is that Putin, in that case, would have to exit his military partnership with China and remove nuclear weapons from Kaliningrad, which border Poland, and get the Russian military out of Cuba and Venezuela and the West. And this is a deal that Putin should do because he ends up winning. He gets things that he doesn't have today. But it secures American interests, too. And I do think in a weird way, it does take an outsider to get that job done. Because if you want someone to fix a problem, you don't turn over the keys to somebody who actually broke the thing in the first place. If you want to fix it, maybe have somebody who didn't break it in the first place. And that's part of why I'm in this race as an outsider.
Okay. Well, since you are.
Well, so let me start with the last part. You need somebody who fixed this problem who didn't break in the first place. And that is true, which is why I think a lot of us initially supported Trump back in 2016. Outsider, he wasn't responsible for all the problems we've had in this country. And so he's right on that. And let me also give him credit for actually, again, answering the question and being specific. And what did he say? We'll freeze the conflict, and whatever Russia has right now, they will keep. We'll do that. He said that we will promise that NATO or Ukraine will never be a part of NATO, right? So obviously that's what Putin wants. In exchange, they would remove missiles from Kaliningrad. If you're not aware, there's a region in between Poland, I think Lithuania, that's not actually connected to Russia. And there were missiles alleged to have been moved there back in 2018. And of course, it's bordering Poland, and obviously Poland's a NATO country, and those are missiles fairly far to the west. So Putin would remove those missiles from that area. He would stop, as Rami says, working with China. So he's giving some, at least concrete things that would happen under his administration if he were president in a negotiation with Putin and what Putin would do and what we would do. Now, is it realistic? Would Russia freeze the conflict right now, keep what they have, stop working with China, pull their missiles out, get out of our sphere? I don't know, because what they've sacrificed so far is a lot, Russia. This conflict has been going on now for almost 18 months. They have, who knows what the casualties are? No one wants to talk about that, or the numbers you hear from the West are just so overblown. But it's probably 50,000, 60,000 dead at a minimum, 300,000 wounded. They have the entire West sanctioning them. So would Putin take that deal, or would he say, you know what, my military is performing great. We're firing on all cylinders. Our military-industrial complex is making all these weapons that, at a faster pace than the West can keep up with. Why should I negotiate now? Why shouldn't I take everything I want and say, what are you going to do about it? So it may not be realistic what he's saying as far as Putin accepting this deal, but at least he's acknowledging it, and he said something that is taboo. He said, Putin will win. He will win something, and you're not allowed to say that, even though that is the reality. He will win something. There's nothing that's going to remove the Russian forces from the Donbass. They will not be driven out by the Ukrainians. That is impossible. So Putin will win. And people in the West, Biden, your neocons, they refuse to acknowledge that fact, and they just want to keep on pouring the weapons in. And what's the end game? It's not clear. That's what I ask, because if the Ukrainians can't dislodge the Russians from the Donbass, what is being gained by continuing to fight, other than people just dying? What's the purpose? If you can show me, give me with a concrete example, show me exactly how the Ukrainians will drive the Russians out of all the Donbass and back into Russia. You tell me how that happens based off of what we know right now, the weapons they have, the manpower they have, how they're going to do that. We just gave them cluster munitions because we ran out of 155s. So how are they going to do that? No one is telling me. No one's saying that. They just say, well, they're going to, we're going to give F-16s next, and just got to keep up the pressure. Ain't going to work. So men are going to die. The lines won't change. What's the purpose? So a deal has to be made, and Putin will get something. That is the reality. That's how things are going to work out here. And the longer we ignore that reality, the more people will die. So credit to Vivek for actually answering the question. And Mike Pence, your career is over. Goodbye. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.